Well, good morning. Welcome to Coffee with the Pastor. We're going through the book of Acts, and we're at chapter 17. We're in the second missionary journey of Paul, and as I've mentioned before, I have actually been on this, retrace those steps in a tour, and I'm actually leading the tour about a year. And you can go on it if you would like more information about it. Just contact me and I'll get you a brochure about it. But where we retrace the steps of Paul. And Paul's been in Berea, and he has had to leave there because they stirred up trouble everywhere he went. There were some people who didn't want him to be there, who didn't like what he was saying, didn't like him preaching Jesus, and so some men have taken him to Athens, and he's there waiting on Timothy and Silas to join him. And we'll pick up the story in Acts 17, verse 16. And while Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols. So he reasoned in the synagogue with the Jews and God-fearing Greeks, as well as in the marketplace day by day, those who happened to be there. Okay, on the Sabbath, he was going and telling them about Jesus and reasoning with them from the scriptures. In the synagogue during the week, he was in the marketplace. A group of Epicurean and Stoic philosophers began to dispute with him. Some of them asked, "Why is this babbler what's he trying to say? And what is this babbler trying to say?" Others remarked he seems to be advocating foreign gods. And they said this because Paul was preaching the good news about Jesus and the resurrection. Then they took him and brought him to a meeting of the Areopagus, who they said to him, "May we know what this new teaching is that you are presenting? You're bringing some strange ideas to our ears, and we want to know what they all mean." All the Athenians and the foreigners who lived there spent their time doing nothing but speaking about and listening to the latest ideas. Athens was a place where philosophy was born. It was a place where people loved to talk and debate new philosophies, new religions and all. And they had a council there in Athens where you would go and you would present your case to them. Now, Paul was taken to the council, which I think was a pretty great honor. Now, he wasn't arrested like some commentaries I've read. He wasn't on trial. His ideas were on trial. And we're going to read about that. But before I read about it, let me show you it. The ruins are still there where he would have met on there. Where those people are sitting and around there, that's kind of where they would have had them in a town. You can't see it so well. It's up on a hill, but some of these other shots you can kind of see it's up on a hill with some ruins in the background. There's another shot where they would have been up there standing before the people, doing all this before the people. And kind of interesting to go visit that spot and stand where Paul would have been arguing with the philosophers. But here's what happened. This is verse 22. Paul then stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus, which I just showed you. You can go stand there next October if you want to. And said, "Men of Athens, I see that in every way you're very religious. For I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship. I even found an altar with this inscription to an unknown God. Now what you worship is something unknown I'm going to proclaim to you." They had an altar to an unknown God because they said it seemed like something else is out there and we didn't know what it was. And Paul says, "I can tell you what that is." And he goes on to argue the God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples built by hands. He's telling them that this God he's a living God. He doesn't live in temples and he's not built by human hands. As if he needed anything, because he himself gives all men life and breath and everything else. From one man he made every nation of men that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he determined the times set for them and the exact places where they should live. And he goes on to tell them that they're not to be making idols offered. Uh, that's not what they're to do, but he's to tell them, and he says that he's given proof of this by raising this Jesus from the dead. That Jesus was his son, he was his offspring. And verse 32, this is their reaction to the message of the resurrection. When they heard about the resurrection of the dead, some of them sneered, but others said, "We want to hear you again on this subject." At that, Paul left the council. A few men became followers of Paul and believed. Among them was Dionysius, a member of the Areopagus, also a woman named Damaris, and a number of others. So, by and large, they did not accept his message, but some did. Damaris did, some women did. And so he creates a church there in Athens from his talks, and actually got some of the folks, one of them that was on the council, to believe. This sermon on the unknown God is, I think, a classic, where he takes what they understand, because they had all these gods that they had or thing, but they said, but we know there's something else out there. And Paul says, okay, that something else is the one true God. Your gods that you've created temples to and you've created idols of and like that, they're not gods. There is a true God. It's this unknown God that you're talking about. And he's got a son. And the son died and he's been resurrected from the dead. And so he's preached Jesus to them in a philosophical way. Now, if you went to the synagogue on Sunday, he would show you through the Old Testament. Now he's showing them through their own philosophies. Didn't have great success there, but he had some. He had some. And I just think it's very interesting how Paul would stand before some of the great philosophical minds of the world that's ever been and hold his own by talking theology on their level. An art that maybe we don't have very well these days, that maybe we ought to develop again. Well, that's the lesson for today. We'll be moving on to Corinth and other places that's in the second missionary journey through Acts. If you want to read ahead, we'll be here again tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So I'll see you then. Bye now.